Hello, hello. Welcome everybody to Knowledge or Nonsense. My name is Sharon Combs. This is my co-host, Mr. Lwayne Perkins.
Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening, good evening. Hey guys, today we're going to talk about managing expectations, product and instrument repair. I almost want to ask how you're doing and who's going to be at HSPA, but the conversation behind the scenes is already rolling. And so my co-host, Mr. Lwayne Perkins, has let me know I have to shut that down and we need to get into this conversation.
It's going to be such a good conversation. So many people within our industry have experience working with instrument repair companies, the good, the bad, and the broken.
Yeah. And so we're going to find out a little bit more about that. You know what to do if you have questions or concerns or even comments like just, hey, I was wondering about this, or this is what I've seen in my experience. Feel free to place it in the comment box. We do ask that you share this video, subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on LinkedIn, follow us on any social media platform that you're watching it now on. And if there is something you want to say, and maybe it may shine a light that you don't want to shine on you or your facility, please feel free to text that to 214-717-5921. And I will get that message directly as we are facilitating this conversation. And I will ask the question of our subject matter personnel today, of our industry voices, and we'll get a response to you. But now I can feel it. They are chomping at the bit. They're ready to go.
Bring them on in.
This is going to be fun, man. Listen, get in this conversation, engage, and connect with the people who are on the platform. Connect with the individuals who are about to come onto this platform right now via LinkedIn, email them, find out more about them so that you can get the answers that you may want or you may need that can help in the industry.
Be prepared to learn. I'm sure we're going to hear some good stories and make some new friends tonight.
Yeah. All right, let's do it. I'm on it, Lwayne. Hello, everyone. How are you doing? Welcome.
Doing great. Good to see you, Sharon.
Thanks
for having me.
Indeed.
Listen, it's so good. Lwayne was telling me, hey, let's get it going.
Hey, so, we have a lot to talk about. You got Chad Bliss and Cliff Russell, two geniuses in the space of not only the space, but within the space of instrument repair. So I'm looking forward to engaging. I know you got some stories, and this is going to be a fun show for us tonight.
Yeah, I'm excited about it myself. Chad, you've been with us before, so I'm going to yield to Cliff. Cliff, I had the privilege of listening to you teach at CCSA, hearing you speak. You've been in the industry. You've been around instruments in the industry for a solid amount of time. Can you tell us?
Yeah, I started out as a scrub tech, ortho scrub tech for about 5 years, and then I became the repair guy that showed up on the truck that sharpened everything and inspected everything. I did that for about 13 years, and now for the last 7, I've been a product manager out here on the West Coast. So I've been almost, right around 20, 25 years in the arena, so to speak.
What is a project manager like? What does that entail?
Well, I look at like I have certain what I call pillars that that I'm responsible for, like our instrument service. That's something that falls under me. So just looking at ways how to develop that program, how to make sure it goes off without a hitch, making sure that kind of like a liaison between operations and sales, and to making sure that it goes seamlessly for the customer.
Nice.
How did that transition go? From surge tech to instrument repair technician expert to project manager. Those are some vastly different skill sets that share a common space.
Yeah, well, coming from the OR world, it really helped me being a repair technician because I could, really put how this is used and so is this a good repair? Is this a bad repair? That type of thing. Because I knew how the instruments were used. And at that time I was able to, share that information, because back then that was kind of a new thing in the repair industry. We had a lot of shop guys that knew how to sharpen stuff, but they didn't know that a scissor had to be a certain length for a certain reason, right? So I was able to share a lot of that information. And then the big transition was coming from operations to sales, because I was, that's two different worlds. But I think what helped me was being an educational person, going out and being able to teach, whether it be my own technicians or SPD techs. That helped me with that transition, because now I'm able to share that knowledge and that information with account managers and salespeople, so that they're not just thinking sales, they're thinking value, right? You got to get what the most out of what you pay for.
Hey, Cliff, you know what's interesting? I'm sorry, Sharon. One of the people I keep on speed dial is the gentleman on he will be to your left, Mr. Chad Bliss. And in fact, whenever I think about instrument repair, Chad, I kid you not, I see your face. When I think about instrument, I see Chad's face. So, Chad, you share some common ground here. What's your story? How did you get into this space of instrument repair?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. Yeah, no, I do share some common ground here. I started out way back in the early days in 1991 during Desert Storm, building field hospitals for the Army. So that's kind of how I got my start in that. They said, hey, do you want to fix mechanic? You want to be a mechanic and fix tanks? Or do you want to be in the plush, field hospital taking care of colonels and doctors and nurses? And I chose that path, right? And shortly thereafter, I found myself managing an SPD department. And then 1995, same thing. I ended up becoming the repair technician, just like Cliff. I was in the back of the truck that would show up to hospitals and fix things, and then grew into the sales and the management and leadership roles. And so the transition is evolution. I always say, once you start there, and if you have a passion for it, even if we try to get out, I think Cliff and I find ourselves right back in the realm, and we're touching instrumentation. It's part of us now, I'm pretty sure.
Sharon, you're muted.
Oh, I was muted. So when you guys really started getting into the instrument repair, was it out of a passion to make it work better, or is it just part of your skill set growing within the sterilization industry? Did you capitalize on opportunity? Like,
For me, it was a little bit about growth. I grew up in northwest Georgia, and never really been away from home. I got opportunity to grow with a company that was doing repairs, and then from there I was able to take the opportunity to come to California. I was the first repair technician for that company out on the West Coast. So it was about growth for me, and wanting to, of course, provide better for my family, and that's all part of that growth. And then on the back end of that, as I came into this, I have a daughter that's had several surgeries throughout her life, and that really brings it home when you really have a loved one on the table, right? So that's kind of where my passion comes from.
Nice. And I want to ask you that too, Chad. Like, what's one thing you are passionate about as it relates to this component?
Yeah, absolutely. A little bit like Cliff, it was a lot about, early on trying to get the growth, right? Kind of met my max or my peak at the hospital as a manager of SPD, and I dealt with it, all the headaches and things, and, doctors always, having concerns about sharp instrumentation, and had a good relationship with my repair vendors back then. Right. And so they loved my energy. So they recruited me. They thought I would be, great in front of customers, out and about, thought I was got enough energy to be in a truck every day, traveling 1,000 miles. So it was the start of that, but there is a passion, like Cliff says, having family members and those things. And it's amazing how quick, somebody playing on a playground, a 9-year-old child could be playing on a playground, and a softball hit them in a face at a softball game, right? And they're in getting a maxillofacial something reconstructive surgery done, and the ability to impact that and make sure that you can have good instrumentation was very interesting to me. And I always had a little bit of pride about what we were doing, and we were definitely making an impact. Obviously not like a surgeon, but we were definitely having an impact, hopefully, that patient care there. So if any loved one ever was on the table, it was good to know that we were part of that process to fix it.
Indeed, it's so what you just said is so I think vital. There are so many departments and factors and touch points that ultimately impact positive outcome for patient healing. SPD, instrument repair, EVS, everyone plays a role. But for folks who are brand new to this space, how would you define instrument repair? What is instrument repair?
Chad, you want to go first? You want me to go first?
Sure, I'll take this one since you've been going first in a minute.
Go right ahead.
For me, instrument repair is really just making sets are ready, right? When they pop that sterile case and they open that up and they set up, those instruments have to be ready to go, right? And in orthopedics and stuff that Cliff's talking about, there's a lot of bone and cement and hammers and things that are just getting beat up in there. And so if those instruments aren't repaired and sharpened and ready to go for that next case, it doesn't leave a positive outcome, for the patient. You end up having longer times on anesthesia, which can complicate things. Surgeon frustration, surgeon fatigue,
Wow.
precision cuts and bone removal, all that stuff is impacted if instruments aren't repaired correctly and clean for that matter. And not saying SPD clean, but what Cliff and I've done in our careers is not only sharpen and repair things to make them cut and work properly, but we're also, making sure that instrument is integrity is in good. So it's clean, it's ready to be sterile. And so it gets the best infection prevention possible.
When you're saying the integrity of it, it means that it can function in which the way it was designed to function. The
Correct.
strength, the support, all of it. Because, Luane had mentioned, I love this part with Luane. We go back and forth. But Luane said, for people who may be new to this, but there may be also people who are not new, but are accustomed to doing things or looking at things a certain way. And so that's why I really wanted us to be able to expound. And I'm gonna come to you, Cliff, on like, what does it entail? Like, is there like a project management? Like, we know with the big stuff, there's preventative maintenance. What about, eye instrument? Go ahead.
Well, first of all, for a program, any program to be successful for a hospital, there's some things that's got to be in place because there's guys that show up all the time to hospitals and just sharpen things, right? And that's great, but what is that doing for you long term? Like coming from a hospital perspective, you want to know what you've got. You got to have an accurate inventory because from that accurate inventory, you're going to know what you need, right? And knowing what you need, you're going to also need to have ways to measure that. What are our metrics on how do we know if we're successful or not, right? So those are things that hospitals really need to look at. And then when you're looking at a repair vendor, it's one who can align with that and who can be transparent enough to make sure that we stay aligned to that. Not coming in December going, hey, we're 400 trays behind. We got 2 weeks left in the year. Right? That kind of puts everybody in a panic mode. So doing the things and communicating, making sure that everybody's aligned to what the goal is and that everybody knows where we're at any given time.
Interesting. And so for some of our larger equipment, right, the instructions for use or the manufacturer's guidelines, it tells us in 6 months, you should have this checked. Once a year, have your sterilized chambers clean, ... I've never seen when I open a brand new instrument, says after 2,700 cuts, have this thing sharpened. Does that exist or is just something?
No, there's some recommendations to that, but you really don't know. I mean, because you don't know how many times that scissor's been closed, right? How what goes from sharp to dull? When is that line? That's really kind of hard to draw, that line in the sand, so to speak. But when you're basing it on, say, your high volume instruments, your high volume trays, they're getting damaged. The idea is like what Chad was saying earlier. Those instruments have to be able to function when they go in. And if your surgeons those instruments are getting up to those surgeons and they're not working properly or they're not cutting properly, that just means you need more service based on what, whether it be usage, whatever you want to base that on. And most people base it on usage because we have so many of the tracking systems now, you can kind of help keep up with that. But to get back to Chad's point, those instruments have to work when they open those trays, and when they don't, that causes negative consequences all around.
So interesting. Chad, you've created so many different types of budgets during your career.
Yep.
So when putting together a budget for a sterile processing department that you have governance over, where does instrument repair fit in? Is it a capital cost? Is it, do you have to go and scurry to a different department to borrow funds? Where does it come in at?
Well, I think it gets blended in a couple, right? I've seen it where we've had it in the SPD general maintenance budget, right? It's part of an everyday process and it gets rolled through. And then I have it where you'll have instruments replacement right into that budget as well. And then it touches into the capital, right? And certain healthcare facilities will that have the right education or have the right mindset of instrument readiness, they usually create a good bucket for that, right? When you can look at instrumentation and replace it right away, whether you have I think Cliff's I know Cliff has this, I can't remember the program that Cliff's, has available, to him to that exact thing. While he's on the truck, he can actually replace an instrument in the set, right there, right then, and right now, as long as that facility pulls that up. We have the same similar conversation with a lot of our customers, and we have that program as well on general instrumentation. And so those things, they usually fall in the general maintenance bucket. So they get it set up contractually. Project actually Cliff and I worked on a Visit 19, a government contract out there in the Northern California area. That exact thing. I mean, they have a budget of $100,000 and they got to show up 26 times and they got to keep those sets ready, And so those are capital budget buckets, but there also is just general maintenance as well.
So for our some of the decision makers, right? When you're having a lot of my life was spent in sales, and sometimes you have to paint a picture. Either you get this service or not, but if you do get the service, here's your return on the investment. What's the return on investment, Cliff, for hiring? And I'm not looking for exact numbers, right? I'm talking about overall for hiring an instrument repair, a qualified and quality instrument repair company.
Well, you can kind of compare it to having a car. You can drive that car as long as it'll go, but usually if you're not maintaining it, if you're not taking care of it, when it goes, it's going to be something big, right? It's going to be something major. Whereas if you spend maybe $50-$60 a pop, you can get the oil changed. You can maintain that so it lasts longer. The idea is to make these instruments last as long as possible, so that the customer, who's the hospital, and the patient gets the most out of gets the most value out of that purchase. Because like you said, we're all constricted by budget, so you want to get as much as you can out of it. So in those senses, the return on investment is one, short term, it's patient safety. That's the key thing. But long term, it's going to be saving on those capital expenditures as far as replacing big, bulk, purchases of instruments, so to speak. Whereas if you're getting them maintained, you might have a handful of beyond repairs each service. Well, that's a handful you might have to replace. You may have them on your backup, right? But if you wait and do it once a year or once every 2 years, you're going to have a lot more non-repairables, which means you're going to have a lot more replaceable, which means you're going to have a lot more capital spend. So long term, it's a lot about cost savings. Short term, it's all about patient safety. You don't want to take a chance on those instruments. You want to have as many eyes on those instruments as you can before the patient gets them.
Yeah,
so it is definitely a priority. Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, just to add a little bit to that. So over the years, like I think when Cliff and I probably first started, the number one concern was, just being sharp and ready to go, right? And that was the number one complaint. And then over the years, we started seeing the cleanliness of the instrumentation, pitting, cracking, all the finer details of the instrumentation. And so when tracking systems really, came to light, people really started paying attention, right? And so they came up with this kind of national average, right? It was just kind of like the methodical robotic that every 35 uses an instrument should be inspected, right, by somebody certified master technician like Cliff or myself or one of his teammates, right? And sometimes it's a no charge inspection. You're just looking at it to make sure that under a microscope that it has no pitting, the passivation layer's integrity is good, those kind of things, right? And so when you start looking at instrumentation like that and really thinking about preventative maintenance, you can look at an instrumentation probably 20, 30 times at no cost before you have to do a repair to it. So let's say, you have an orthopedic hospital that's really rough on their instrumentation and they're turning over those over and over and they don't have adequate inventory. You probably need to be there more often and seeing that more often. Then you have another hospital that actually took our recommendations and said, hey, when you're doing 25 ortho cases a day, you probably need about 35 sets because you're going to need to not turn those over. You want to space them out and then do the first in, first out rule, right? Where you're using equipment, evenly tracking, saying, hey, we've used this one the same amount of times as the other, right? So all those things start to happen. And really, when you look at that, you can get a good fiscal budget when you look at that. And it's shown, I'm sure Cliff can probably prove this to you on some of the spreadsheets that he's done, just like I can. It ends up saving you money in the long run when you spend more time looking at your instrumentation, investing in just that oversight of looking at it, making sure the integrity is good, because it takes tremendous abuse. The way water is these years, and how the chemistry is working on those and making sure things are clean, it's all impacting those instruments. And so even though you got to break them down and have us look at them more often, it really truly is a cost savings in the long run.
Hey, I want us to take a quick commercial break. Everyone, what you just said was amazing. There was a lot of content in that and a lot of meat. I really want us to unpack that a little bit.
Absolutely.
Because I want us to talk about managing expectations, because all of that goes into managing expectations. There's the actual instrument repair, hands-on, where you say sharpening the instrument and doing it, but managing the expectations so to have somebody help them be aware of it before it's a pressing issue, like to just kind of manage what those expectations look like. So when we come back from this commercial break, I would like for us to really jump into what Chad just said and share maybe some tools or some ways you all have managed expectations with the client facility as far as decision makers, and also with the individuals who are the middle users, I guess, who are handling these instruments before they hit the surgeon's hand. So we'll be right back. It's going to be about just under 2 minutes, but we definitely want to come back and really unpack that. All right, guys? Just a sec.
Lost time is never found again. CS Assist specializes in providing CS leadership more time to focus on all resources on patient care and safety by assisting with your compliance needs. We understand there are many departmental recommendations and even more regulatory compliance mandates to adhere to and to follow. We focus on the constant changes in staff education and regulatory compliance, allowing you to focus on the daily operational needs. Realizing the value of time, we partner with you to alleviate risk in all areas. CS Assist offers a variety of support packages that includes everything from CSPD-specific policies and procedures to fully customized service readiness plans. For more information regarding retainer options, our qualitative reporting tools, or our online documentation, call CS Assist at 1-833-CSP-ASST. That is 1-833-277-2778. We look forward to speaking with you.
Hey, and we are back. Thank you guys so much. I definitely want to thank the sponsors, CS Assist and SIPS Consults, for being just faithful and helping us to be able to provide this information prior to us leaving. Hey guys, this is a great time to share the video. Yes, it is. Prior to us leaving, Chad, you shared just a wealth of information from talking about the pitting, talking about being able to really know the instruments, both you and Cliff, Can we unpack that just a little bit as it relates to managing expectations to help people
Absolutely.
maybe plan more effectively when we carry out the repair in a more pattern or systemic
More
process?
methodical way, right? Let's more
Yeah.
methodical,
It's
organized
a
manner.
process. We are a
Absolutely.
process department. So,
Absolutely.
Chad, Cliff,
Yep.
either one of you guys can jump right in.
Well, I'll go ahead and kick off a little bit. Like, talking about that. So early days, we used to manage instrument repair based on like the sharpness, right? Cliff's talking about orthopedics, right? You go in there, you're looking at the edge, making sure the scissor cuts when it needs to cut. When does it actually get dull? When's the magic day it gets dull, right? And you're never going to know that, based on the case, right? So there's days where scissors will last, 55 cuts and everything continues to cut when you're tested on TheraBand and so what, right? But then maybe there's a hard case, right? And right in the middle of the case, the doc, couldn't find what he needed, and he reaches over on the mail stand, picks up a tenotomy or a Metzenbaum or whatever he does, and he ends up cutting a wire or cutting something and puts a huge nick in it. That scissor no longer works, right? Now, it might have been the first time after Cliff sharpened it or I sharpened it, right? That can happen. And so that inspection at that point in time, just like that, it's got to be recognized. It's got to be educated in the facility. They can look at that and have those things. So all of those, make sense, right? But then there's also instrumentation, the way when we're sterilizing it, right? Right now I'm on a project right now on a large healthcare facility, assisting in, sterility and cleanliness and those things. And when you look at water chemistry and water quality throughout the country, where you're looking at California, Cliff could probably talk to that. You look at Denver, Colorado, high in iron. You look at Midwest, high in calcium. Every one of those things is attacking instrumentation. And as biofilms and infection prevention, folks at the hospitals get involved, you're starting to see those instruments, get attacked more, right? You're seeing much more rusting, which we're going to talk about later. We're going to see a lot more pitting. You're going to see calcium. You're going to see staining. And it's really, education that probably Cliff or myself or even you, Luane, for sure, and Sharon, for sure, when we're in assessing facilities, a lot of those things, when you're there every day, you're not really noticing them because they kind of grow on you. But when we come in, it's very alarming. We're seeing those things right away. And those things are all working to basically break down the passivation layer, which is the protective layer that's going to create that instrument's, strength. So it can be sterile. If that passivation layer is not, intact, the instrument, the IFU says it cannot be, validated for sterility, right? So there's just a lot more that just not sharpening anymore, but instrument repair and instrument inspection and just overall instrument preventative maintenance has to be tied in there. Cliff?
I couldn't agree more. I would like to add to that is one way that you can help with your repair program is by reducing the repairs that you need, right? And so that comes with what Chad was talking about, education to the staff, but even more so is making sure they know what expectations they have. Most of the time when I go into a process review, the first thing I ask is okay, what is the process? Are they taking the paper goods out? How are they supposed to be separating? Are they supposed to be wiping, flushing, spraying, all that good stuff? And when I usually go in decon and watch things come through, I see a multitude of different, not that they're all wrong, but that they're just different and they're not best practice. So, and a lot of it has to go back to when have you set your processes? When have you trained on your processes? And does everybody know what their expectations are? And then from that, working with the repair vendor, it does go back to knowing what the hospital expects of the vendor, and as well as what the vendor expects from the hospital. Goal. And if you're supposed to go through 40 trays a month on your repair program, and you're only giving out, 10 trays a month, you're not going to meet that goal, right? So it's about communication on that end and knowing what's expected of both sides as well.
Indeed. I so remember the time when any vendor, but especially instrument repair vendors, would be introduced to the staff members on all three shifts, and there'd be an exchange of set expectations. Not just the red bin in the corner, that's where you put the broken instruments and walk away. Put the tip protectors on and put them in the red bin. Separate the red bin. Rusty instruments go to the left, pit instruments go to the right, or whatever your hospital's policies is. Nowadays, and there's not a broad brush here, but I'm seeing a different type of trend where the instrument repair service is somewhere off in a vehicle, maybe in the back of the hospital, or somewhere built in a separate facility, but very little educational interaction with the staff. How can we, in your expertise, and you've been, I know you're seeing some of these trends, how can we change that around?
Well, one, your repair vendor should want to come in and do that, because as a repair partner, we want to reduce your repairs, right? And when we can help do that, then you're going to keep us there, right? So that's part of what we want to do. But at the same time, it comes down to knowing what you need. A lot of places I go in and they don't even they couldn't tell you the last time they did an inventory or they had an inventory, right? So just making sure you know what you're looking for, what you want to track. Some people track it by surgical site. They baseline their SSI rates and see if those go down. Some places, do it on there. They have complaint forms for their surgeons, and they can tag it that way. So just depends on how you want to, what you're trying to track, as well as how you're going to track it, and is it successful.
Hey, I want to jump in right here and ask this question again, because I love what we get to do. And even on LinkedIn, we have such a network of industry voices and industry professionals that we can glean from and that we can collaborate with. But as well as I do, that this industry on the whole, there are people who are not on LinkedIn. There are more rural communities, not to say rural is less or more or anything, but there are individuals out there who really may not either have access to or have time to access some of these educational platforms outside of just for social interaction. So is there ever, in your experience, I'm not saying it should be, has there ever been a time when you've seen repairs done inside of the department? As a child growing up, there were times when we I'm just gonna say Jimmy Rick, but like some MacGyver type stuff. Hey, hand me a safety pin and a rubber band and let's see what we can do with it. Are there ever repairs done inside of a department? I'm actually going to start with Cliff, and then I'm coming to you, Chad. And why should we or should we not do that?
Yeah, I have seen that done. Sometimes it can be as simple as somebody trying to tighten a screw, right? There's a screw that's backed out a little bit. Oh, I've got an osteotome I can do that with. So I've seen that done. I wouldn't recommend it. I highly recommend against it, because there is a lot of training that goes into knowing what to do, and it may be just a screw, but if you're using an osteotome, what if that slips and gets you in the hand, right? So one, it's staff safety. They don't have that training. They don't have the proper equipment in there, especially in decon, to do those types of things. So I would highly go against promoting that. And part of it is education, is explaining to them why. I mean, there's always guys that want to test the sharpness of the osteotome by using their thumb like they do their pocket knife, and hopefully I can get to them before they cut themselves. So, but you do see that from time to time. But I would highly recommend against it. Outside of like the in-house labs where you have a trained person that's dedicated to that has been certified and validated to know what they're doing, because sometimes, like, some people don't even realize that, like I said before, that scissors are a certain length for a certain reason. Some people don't realize that's actually the case, and if we're not measuring our scissors, you can get yourself into a pickle there.
It's something you and Chad said early on, a term you use, master technician. Master technician.
Thank you for bringing that back, because I was like, tell me about that. Go ahead,
master technician. So this is not something you gain overnight. You just heard from both of these gentlemen's experiences, from the operating room, from the military, all the way, bringing all of those skills to instrument repair. Master technician. So please don't decapitate yourself playing around with these surgical tools.
Just say no.
Just say no, exactly.
Say no.
That's right.
Well, there's also a actual infection risk when you sharpen instruments yourselves, right? When we talk master technician and the equipment we use to repair surgical instrumentation, you could probably Google some stuff and find some things, right? Because Google's got everything, right? And I've seen people, but there's something for people to actually Google the word swarf, right? I've seen it where physicians, doctors that are frustrated because, and a little history lesson I'll talk about it too, where their instruments aren't getting rotated, right? And the reason is maybe they don't have enough inventory, and so they're using those sets every day. So there's no way you can get them out, right? Because there's not enough sets in there. So those docs end up taking them home at night, and they grab their same lawnmower blade grinder, right? And all those little, grinding mechanisms, very coarse. It'll actually, as you sharpen stainless steel, you have the ability to swarf, which is basically you're taking the metal from the grinding wheel, whatever you use, and embedding it into the instrumentation, stainless steel. Stainless steel is basically made up of the periodic table, certain metals that create a film, an oxidation, a positive oxidation that makes it stainless steel or stain resistant. When you do that at home and you don't do the proper neutralization, you don't do the proper cleaning afterwards, and you don't have the proper equipment, you at that point in time will start, osteotomes is the biggest one. They'll start to turn brown. They'll start to have stuff in there. And basically you're taking the makeup of that instrument and you're changing it, which is going to be impacted by the chemistry of that instrument. And so when I say master technician, it's not just because we can put a good edge on something and make it cut razor blades and shave our arms. There is a method to that madness, and you have to understand that. Otherwise, you're putting patients at risk. So if somebody's doing that, it's a no-no. I remember when I had one doc that was doing a hand surgery. He loved to do hand tendons and things. And he went to the Hobby Lobby and he got crochet needles because those worked perfect. And they were aluminum, copper, and then they sterilized them. They ran them through the sonic and it turned every instrument black. Done. Ruined thousands of dollars of instruments. So got to make sure it's proper stainless steel. Just my point.
Okay. So you guys are saying that, and I just hear, let me just tell you what I'm hearing here. Thank you for sharing experience and tangible processes and thought processes that people can implement. But education is actually needed. Yep. You do need to manage the expectations, not just for how frequently you service, but how you service. Like, this is knowledge and nonsense. We're joking, but I clearly hear that 3 of the 4 people on this screen have seen clear nonsense that can endanger not only the employee and the person handling the instruments, but it can endanger others, and it can endanger a budget.
Listen, it's almost mind-boggling. Would you want the pilot going underneath the plane saying, I think I can fix this? Let me Google to see how to jerry rig. Would you feel comfortable getting on that plane? The answer is universally no. So why would you feel comfortable allowing anyone to touch your surgical devices without being someone from this master class? So
when you brought up something earlier, you're talking about just the why we do it, right? Like in what we see, right? And the budget, or who creates the budget, or the education of it, right? And sometimes Cliff and I are educating people, non-decision makers, right? We got to give our CEUs to folks, and we spend lots of times, but sometimes the education can be most impactful is when you get into the director level, you get into the administration or the executive level of the hospital, because once you educate them, and I've been part of many things, I guarantee Cliff has too, many of hospitals that had CMS walk in and take away their certification and shut them down right there. And they're like, and administration, when that happens, when they start losing $3 to $5 million a day, they're paying attention to us sharpening guys real fast. Okay, what's happening? Why are we having this staining? Why are we shut down? How do we prevent this? What are we doing now? And it's amazing how the budget is endless at that point in time. And just think the money that they have to spend to make up for the loss of years of doing a proper, preventive maintenance program. And then just think about the risk, right? You read it in the news all the time, 5,000 patients, sterility issues, those kind of things. Those things can all be prevented if we just sit down and have a good conversation, a good education, and be transparent about what the customer's expectations are. Obviously we want sharp instruments for doctor satisfaction. They're the ones working on us, but we also need, infection prevention needs to be happy. And then we have to have a balanced budget as well. But administration, any of those, they should have those folks in there listening to us, because if they hear what Cliff and I have to say, they're good. They're never going to have that problem again. They'll never have it.
Cliff.
To go back to what Luane said earlier about return on investment, it looks really bad on the financial side when you have to come up with $1 million to correct everything because you've been cited and been given a 30-day or 45-day correct or shut down. It's a lot harder, on your budget when you got to do it that way than, whatever, 2,000, 3,000 a month, whatever, again, that goes back to your preventative maintenance. You're doing little at a time to save that money over a length of time. You get cited and shut down. Chad's absolutely correct. You're getting $3 or $4 million a day because you're shut down. Things start looking for the instrument repair guy really quick.
Yeah. Yes, and those expectations.
And
Hey, Brian said, great stuff. Thanks for the education and the master repair class. Education is so needed. Too much nonsense out there. Definitely, Rebecca was like, she's had some horrifying stories, and so
yeah. And look, this is not a laughing matter, but some
at
of
all.
the stuff
We're smiling, but it's not.
Cliff, I remember being a technician, and the instrument came down the pipe, and I couldn't identify it. I'm like, what is this? It looks sort of like had a little malleable factor, so a mallet, but it has a cutting edge. What is this? Kind of find out one of the physicians, talented, artistic, wonderful guy, created an instrument that he likes to use. Right? No IFUs.
No FDA.
No 510. No 510. Oh yeah.
It's just, hey, let's bypass every agency, the government, every company,
SGNA, you name it, is all on it.
Oh
like Play-Doh, but with a more solid matter. Just then went in there and start crafting and creating.
Right.
Okay. Go ahead, Cliff.
In their defense,
I was just going to add to
you're using that for a reason.
I was going to add to the fact that education is important, and you got to make SPD understand that they have just as much authority, or whatever you want to call it, to throw up a red flag and stop things than anybody else does. I mean, you want to talk about some nonsense. I was told one time that they didn't test their laparoscopic instruments because they were all failing. and now listen, and listen, now the back end of that was, he would get yelled at if those trays were down. He would get yelled at if those trays weren't ready to go. And so it was a real fear for him, that I got to do my job. I got, and I can't afford that to go down. But, a little education went a long way. And then it was like, okay, I get it now, right? Oh, I get that. But like you said, it's not funny, but sometimes you just got to laugh. You're like, whoa, what happened there?
Listen, man, I'm not okay. I know, I totally understand that, but I'm not going to laugh because that is true. Like, they're all failing, so no one wants to hold that bag. Do you realize what you're doing when you say, like, what? Like, yep. What? Because that is so. I wanted to say this again: managing expectations. As someone's coming up, you guys came up from technician. There was like learning curves. So as people get into the leadership role, sometimes when you're sometimes in the technician role, entry level. I'll just say entry level because all techs are not created equal, and all don't have the same perspective. But in that entry level role, sometimes we wait until it must be done before we address it. And so with managing expectations, as you're coming into leadership, you have to come out of that must be done place to manage said expectations. But yeah, that's I wish there were some ways that we could help people recognize, hey, things to look for.
You know what? It has to be part of your competency. Because before we get to the instrument repair, it's the job of the technician, and the surgical tech, and in some cases the surgeon, to identify what's wrong with this instrument on the surface. So they can at least say, hey, Chad, hey, Cliff, this isn't cutting right. It's not ratcheting, it feels stiff. So there should be a certain degree of competency on just identification. Technician is trained or supposed to be trained on instrument functionality. So if it's not working, why is it not working? Well, be a part of the solution. So I think repair techs and these master technicians need to be a permanent fixture in the sale process in ecosystem.
Well, and that's one of the things through education. One thing we try to do is get information from the guys that are on our trucks. They do reports and pictures and all that good stuff, and really take it back and explain to them, if they see this, this is, you need to pull it, and this is why, because they may not know, and especially with pitting, I think 98% of the places that I see, their biggest culprit is pitting, because of what Chad was saying earlier, the water, everything that we're constantly battling to get those instruments sterilized is constantly tearing those instruments down, right? So it's an ongoing battle.
Well, and I think managing expectations too, right? Not just SPD and repair. But he's talking about those, I call them a service summary or an observation report, right? When you sharpen and repair thing, the guys in the trucks, when they can leave pictures that will say 1,000 words, and they can share those at their 7 o'clock huddles and their morning reports with the OR, when the docs and the nurses start to see that, and the scrubs start to see what we see in the truck, it's amazing how that education starts to filter its way up the channel, right? Mm-hmm. Doctor's expectation is to have everything ready. Patients, their number one expectation. Instruments are second fiddle in the OR, right? I want them to work. I don't really care about them. I just want them to work, right? And then everybody else has just a little bit different expectation along the line. And I think as a repair technician or vendors like Cliff and I, and even you, LaWayne, when you're doing assessments of facilities, right? You're trying to go in and educate them. It's not just about charging you $700 a day or $1,000 or $2,000 a day for your instrument repair and your inventory. It's about managing that entire expectation of what the OR really needs, what the surgeons need, what the nurses need, and what SPD needs to be successful. And then just maintaining a good instrument inventory, right? That's key on the education. And so those reports, they say 1,000 words when you put pictures in there, because they'll start to see things that they don't pay attention to. They're in a hustle bustle. Their expectations are not paying attention to instrumentation once the patient goes under its full speed.
Hey, Chad, you know what? It should matter always, not just when a camera is blown up or a scope is fractured or, right. Or instrument use incorrect. It should always matter. This is right. Why we have to do a better job of bringing in closer to the front line in SPD, the education that can be provided by instrument repair technicians. I've seen in several occasions where hospitals will pay for a service, and yes, the techs are showing up, and yes, they're managing inventory, but the education component is non-existent. It's not there. And in some cases, you have to go out and, hey, I know you got, I worked in a hospital down the block 5 years ago, and I remember you coming on all 3 shifts. What happened to that service? Is it, did the educator leave the department? Are you no longer, is that not part of your budget, your company culture? So we got to get back to the core of that level of service.
Agreed.
You have to really, sometimes you have to hold those vendors, feet on the carpet, so to speak, call them to the carpet. But one thing that will help is when you are negotiating for your repair vendor, make sure you put that as part of it. That way, that can be one of the metrics that is used for measurement. And if they're not delivering, then you can see where it's not being delivered, where it is, and really hold them to the carpet and really, come down to, hey, you guys do pretty much the same thing, but the education is more from this side. I'm going to go with this guy, right? So, just making it aware on the negotiation table that it's something that's very important to you, and that it needs to have some accountability there.
Hey, Cliff, you got one real quick, Shannon, you have it. I guarantee you there's at least one person right now who's about to have this conversation tomorrow. You just made it that much more difficult for that guy trying to get that contract signed.
Oh yeah. Now I can be, I'll be like, wait a minute, I have more questions.
Yeah, they're gonna love me for sure.
Yeah, the ink was drying, Cliff, but not anymore.
Yes, it has just been rewritten.
Yeah,
hey guys, we're gonna take a really quick commercial break. I definitely want to hit Brian Reed, Jameed Billingsley has put something in the comments. So when we come back, we're going to address those things. And I'm going to put some comments here on the back chat. And I'm going to ask one of you to kind of respond to each of that. But because we are knowledge or nonsense, we always want to bring things that add value, that educate with credible individuals. Not pundits. You guys may notice I'm talking, but I'm not talking a lot about this process, because you don't need what I think. You need what these individuals know, and that will help operate. It will just help wherever you are within your industry platform. And so I want to show some love. Hey, Jeremy, thank you for watching Knowledge and Nonsense. You were bold enough to put that on the thing. We're going to put it out there. We're going to put it out there. And I hope you're on LinkedIn and not just Facebook, but I hope you're on LinkedIn, because there are so many openings everywhere in different companies. Like we're all different companies. And my hope is that someone reaches out to you and you're able to reach out to someone on LinkedIn and circle back and send me a private message and let me know, you know what, somebody reached out. Yeah, because people are looking. And it looks like you're wearing a crown on your head too. So yeah, shouts out to you. Way to be. And I fully expect to hear from you this week. I don't care if it's while I'm at HSPA this week, to say somebody reached out to you. So if you guys are okay, we're going to take a really quick commercial break, and we're going to come back and hit these comments. And for you out there listening, get ready to put your responses to the comments in, because I'm about to sit back and let it happen.
Let's get it.
Let's get it. It's not good. All right, and we are back. This is Knowledge and Nonsense, and today we're talking about managing expectations, instrument repair, product repair. We're here with Cliff Russell, very solid source of information and education and all things in product instrument repair. Chad Bliss, same thing, very solid, incredible source of information, not just book study, but actual hands-on process. So if you have questions or there's feedback, this is your platform. This is where we have the live conversations, and we keep it organic. There's no tailoring it to make it sound a certain way. We're here to offer things out. And so I have a question. First off, Brian Reed, thank you so much. Rebecca, thank you so much. Also, we're going to give some things away. I have this awesome Knowledge and Nonsense sweatshirt that we're giving away as swag. So if you're going to be at HSPA, come find me. So we can do that as well. Jamie says, team, part of the problem is that many facilities don't have all of the recommended testing material. So many opportunities to catch repairs before they impact cases ahead of time. So he says so many opportunities. So I'm thinking he is saying that there's so many opportunities, there's so many opportunities that we're not making. He's just saying, hey, these opportunities are there. So is that a agree, disagree? Do we want to expound more on it? I love it.
I would agree. I would just say, make sure, if you're a department leader, that there are testing materials available from multiple different companies. So whoever, it's not hard to find. Some make them more targeted than others, but you can still find the testing materials you need. And the key thing is making sure you get the education on the front end on how to test them. Because sometimes I go in and they got, the thick blue or green TheraBand that they're testing with, and it's just too thick. And they didn't know that. They just been told that they need to test it with TheraBand, right? So a lot of that education on the front end is very helpful. But it is out there. It is available.
Yep. And one of the questions on the CRCST test is, for instruments or scissors at 4.5 inches or less should be tested on yellow. Anything 4.5 should be tested on red. That is a question. So, and I know the industry there's still quite a few folks out there, hospitals and healthcare systems that don't, help people or incentivize, pay them a raise or whatever they get if they get CRCST certified. And I think that's money well spent. So if you're a healthcare facility, an SPD manager that needs to find ways to better their staff, pushing them or helping them get their CRCST, there is a lot of good information in that exam. I mean, there's some of that, that's pretty high level, but it's also basic, simple one like that, what we're talking about. I've seen facilities where they'll have testing stations. I've seen all over. I've seen Cliff stuff, spread across the banners, right? And some facilities use it very well. And it comes back to what Cliff just said, the education up front. I've had facilities that say, okay, we're going to test our scissors and it's up to a judgment call of a new technician, right? And then how does that competency, like Wayne talked about, is it continually been done, right? Are you competent at testing scissors? I've seen it where the bin is stacked full super high because every scissor didn't cut what they thought, right? And then you almost impede the process of SPD. And then when that happens, then they stop doing it all because they want the sets done up. So education is key up front, but testing material definitely, and having the proper training to prevent some of that or in help in that process could go a long way.
Indeed. Some great comments. Jamie, great point on the repair and education interface. Brian also had a really powerful comment up there that Sharon, you can put back up.
I have it. I'll take care of it.
Yeah. When my father went in for a radical prostatectomy, I picked up the lap tray the day before and personally paid to have them repaired. Just saying, as a patient, I'll pay if I have to ensure it's done right. Hey, we hope everyone would have it done right. This is why it's so important.
Yes.
Decision makers, you need the right repair personnel on your team, not as a passerby, a fixture.
And repair is not an option. It is a necessity. It's kind of like how people treated social media prior to the pandemic for business. Well, it's an option. No, you want to be prepared before your back is up against the wall. We want to move out of that. There's enough that's going to be immediate. So the things that don't have to be immediate, let's manage the expectations. Let's put the processes in place and education. I just hear education. Mm-hmm. I hear education. Instrument repair cannot take place without education. They're inseparable.
And Sharon, to add on to that, with the education, we go through our, some vendors give better education than others. Some come in for 5 minutes and talk in a monotone voice and they're out of there. Other ones spend a good hour. You want to get good education. And one of the key things is what I try to do as an educator is not just teach at them, but teach them something and give them the whys. Because I know when I was a technician, if you had, I need you to do this, that's one more step that I got to do. That's going to get, in order to get this tray ready, I've got to check that box. Well, it's not checking a box. It's, hey, here's why we have you test those insulation on the lap instruments, because here's a video that shows you what can happen inside the patient. And you're the last one that looks at that instrument before it goes up in the OR, right? Because the scrub tech, he might look for function, but there's no way to test it for, integrity over the, in the sterile field. So that SPD person is that last line of defense. And that's why it's so important. So my point there is just teaching the whys, making them understand. And that goes for the OR too, because the OR is so inundated with so much stuff to do. They're like, I'm not doing that extra step. Well, here's why I need you to do that. And then they're like, oh, okay, it makes sense, right? So that's one key thing for me that really helps.
All right. And again, the comments are coming in. So do anyone, either of you three, have a response for Arlene? She said, what do you see in departments to test pituitary graspers?
Cardstock.
I was talking at the same time.
Yeah, well, cardstock, like if you use a 3x5 card, now the pituitary shouldn't cut, but it should make an indentation that shows that both, where the jaws come together. If you see a gap in that indentation, then the jaws aren't touching. It may not grasp or hold or grab onto that pituitary gland the way it's supposed to. And Chad, you might want to add on to it, anything like that. But we use a 3x5 or cardstock, so it makes that impression, because pituitaries are not supposed to cut. They're supposed to touch and hold.
Yeah, and in the shop, sometimes we'll use leather, and that's not approved for sterile department. So we use cardstock because I can be in that department, but the leather parts, I think we use that in the shop because we can control that environment a little bit better. So both those are great abilities. One other thing I wanted to throw out here too is, how they do assessments all the time on SPD, right? They'll go in and they'll look for wire brushes and abrasives, and they'll look for cleanliness, and they'll look for this on the tables and those things. And one of the things I'm pushing this year that I want to see, and hopefully somebody on this will take up, I really want somebody to come in and I want to have us do a instrument assessment. Not instrument needs to be repaired, but what you're doing, how you're doing it, who you're doing it with, is it right for you, right? And you get those parameters and have that program that says, hey, you've been using this vendor for 20 years. You love them to death. They're probably in their rut. But why are you using them? And is it adequate for your facility? Because your facility, I guarantee, is added inventory or cut inventory. They've got new docs. They've gotten rid of docs. There's new orthopedic surgeons. They're probably still on the same maintenance plan because that was their budget and that's on autopilot. So I challenge one of these facilities to call me up and say, come give me an assessment. Don't care what vendor you use. I'll just tell you if it's right, or here's the recommendations, what you should have your repair vendor change.
Okay, because that is one of the questions, and I'm like, we're running out of time, but it's good. So if you guys can give me like 4 more minutes, sorry to put you on the spot like that, but it was like, how was it decided, and who decides what is going to get repaired, and when, and along those lines, how often, if ever, do the repair parameters change? Like what you're saying, there's new, maybe new instruments, maybe IFUs have been revised. Like, go ahead, Cliff.
We try to do that yearly with a customer, or if we can get it as it happens, is really beneficial. But a lot of times, that may or may not happen. We usually ask for that in our business reviews as, hey, has your inventory changed? Have you added anything? So we try to keep up with it that way, because they're always changing, even like what Chad was saying, it may not even be the trays. You may have extra ortho doctors. So your ortho cases have shot way up, right? So now you don't have enough inventory. So, those type of things are really important. And then as far as who decides, ideally, anybody that comes across an instrument that doesn't look right needs to, identify it. But then when you're talking about who gets the repair and how's it repaired, that comes down to who you have contracts with, who you don't, who your repair vendor is, that type of stuff too.
Yep. And I'll add to that. I think one thing is I've had a couple of different, I'm going to go a little bit of the horror story, but a little bit of the positive. Instrument tracking systems. I've been part of some health systems that have it dialed in where, as a repair technician, my badge has a scan on. I walk in a SensorTrack, I scan my badge, I look at the surgery schedule, and I'll hit print, and it'll tell me what sets are due for maintenance at that point in time. And those are on autopilot, and we set that up annually, like we was talking about. I've also seen where the hospital's like, the doctor complained, that set goes out next week, right? And then I've also seen SPD say, this is all I can afford to give you today, and here it is because you showed up, right? And so those 3 parameters happen. All of them, happen, but the best practice, let's say, we really need to have that dialed in. There needs to be a tracking system or some way of tracking it, not necessarily going out and spending the hundreds of thousands of dollars for SensorTrack, but at least having the sets in the inventory, like Cliff can probably tell you. Then he can say, hey, I've serviced this one every 2 months or every 3 months. And then you look, hey, I got orthodox working more. Maybe I'm going to come an extra month and do those trays and get those turned around, right? Those things, all those things are the way.
And to add to what Chad's saying is that if you have a tracking system, use it. You don't know how many times we go in and most of the tracking systems have PM flags that you can set for the trays, and they're like, oh yeah, we have those set, and then we go in there and they've got maybe 20 sets set out of 800 sets, right? It's like, so just understanding how to use it and that they need to use it. So,
hey team, welcome to tonight's show. This is Not Your Nonsense. Want to do right? It's like we just kicking off, so we might need a part 2 here.
Yeah. Listen, hey,
you're getting deep here. There's a lot.
I'm going to be at HSPA. Is anyone else on this screen going to be at HSPA this upcoming weekend?
Unfortunately not. I just had a baby girl born, so I'm going to be at home with my baby girl.
Congratulations.
All right, everybody, let's give Cliff some, let's give him some love, some hearts.
Yeah, send some hearts to Millie. That's her name. So
Hey, Millie.
Hey, Millie,
Yeah,
welcome.
Millie Russell. Very
I'm
nice.
with that. I feel
Congratulations.
the love. I feel giddy again. Yeah, I
yeah,
like that.
we are over the
Congratulations.
moon right now. She's only 9 weeks old. So
Oh wow!
Oh, that's
Congrats.
awesome. That's
Congrats.
awesome.
And,
Awesome.
and
I love
look,
it.
you're up with us talking about instrument repair. You're not going to sleep tonight, sir.
Yeah, exactly. We can go along, Sharon. He's got all the time in the world.
that's right. It's all good. I'm good.
He's good. Hey, I want to read a couple of these comments. We are going to start bringing this to a close. Thank you guys for being willing to go a little longer. We always want to add, somebody put it hard up there. Yeah, they're feeling the love. That's it, Cliff. You know, the next line, I am registered at. No, I'm just teasing. But yeah, I'm very excited about it. Green Golden says the repair team should work to help you keep the instruments in great working order. And she says, I have loyalty to the instruments used, not the repair company. I will switch. And so I like that. I'm not recommending people switch, but I'm not recommending you don't. I'm saying it sounds like we're recommending be aware of where you are in the process. Now, Miss Yee, thank you so much for the comments, Miss Yee. I'm really with it. Somebody said congratulations on your babe, on your beautiful baby. Sharon, again, you need to have a plan. And yes, I use my tracking system to determine what will go out for repair. Miss Yee says the processing tech is the one inspecting and doing quality assurance and the quality of instruments. Miss Yee, I want you to know I also saw your other comment. I didn't put it up because it's not with instrument repair, but we will in June. We have a topic that's going to help us, really just look more into like the pay. We no fake promises here.
No,
we are not going to change sterilization pay nationwide in June. It's not happening. But we can talk about building awareness and communicating effectively based on where you are, your zip code, the specialties, and your body of expertise. So we're going to do that in June. It would be great for you to go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube or on LinkedIn, whatever platform you're watching, so you can be notified when that's coming through. And now the part I love. Go ahead, LaWayne, while I'm getting
listen, HSPA and Scrub Ball. So we got a lot of amazing conferences coming up. I'll be in both. But Sharon, you said you had some giveaways. So
I do. And Arlene says, what? I want a sweatshirt from Knowledge and Nonsense. Brian, I hear you saying I'll fashion that swag down the HSPA catwalk. I'll hold you to it, Brian. Someone else mentioned it as well. And so let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to share my screen. This is a giveaway. If you're going to be at HSPA, please put in the comments, going to be there if you are the winner. If you are not going to be there, please put in the comments, not going to be there. We'll get some type of educational, we'll give you a leadership package. You may not get the swag or the sweatshirt because it's going to HSPA, but you will get some awesome books and possibly a t-shirt based on what you put in the comments. All right, so LaWayne, can you see my screen yet?
Not yet, but any moment now.
Any moment now.
Sing it, girl.
I know, right? On Knowledge and Nonsense. I do want to say also, we laughed and everything today because we all love what we get to do. But some of the things we were smiling at, we weren't smiling because we approved of it. We're smiling because it's horrifying and it's nonsense. And we want to bring awareness so it can stop. Again, that's not how we test anything. All right. Can you see it, LaWayne?
Yes. Bum, 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 bum,
Let's see who's going to win. Who's going to win? Hey, Sergeant Trey, bringing it in. So listen, Danny, if you are going to be at HSPA, which I believe you are, just put in the comment HSPA, letting me know you'll be there. And I will connect with you via private message on one of the social platforms to get your size and make it happen. I'm very excited. Yay for you winning. Thanks for your comments. Thanks for being here with us. I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to let Chad, Cliff, and or LaWayne say whatever they want to say as we close out and as we go enjoy the remaining time left in our Tuesday.
Hey, I just want to thank you, gentlemen and lady, for tonight's show. This was an awesome conversation. Chad, Cliff, where can our viewers find you? Where are you located? What's your social media handles?
I'm at Cliff Russell at LinkedIn, as well as Cliff_Russell at Steris.com. You can reach me at either one of those. And just thank you so much for having me. I think this is an outstanding platform with stuff that we need to be talking about. If we can get these repair companies and the hospitals aligned and understand we're getting going after the same goal, man, just the possibilities are endless. And I'm looking forward to doing more of them. So thank you guys very much.
Hey, send an invite.
Yep,
Looking
awesome,
forward to having you.
Yep,
Chad?
you can reach me at Chad Bliss at LinkedIn. You can also reach me at Chad Bliss at hrhealthservices.com. And I've done this before, and Luane and Sharon both cringe, but if you need to want to just call and ask me questions, phone number is 402-613-4807. Text me, beat me, whatever you want to do. I'm available. So even if it's just for a question, I understand instruments. It's all good.
Awesome.
I love it. Luane?
Thank you for joining us. Sharon, take us out.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. See us at HSPA, booth 1223, booth 739. We also, you don't know when it's going to happen. Might be Monday evening. We're going to do a little live impromptu knowledge and nonsense where we're going to ask some questions, talk about dismiss. Come and find me. Guys, thank you so much for being with us this evening. Share this video. Please subscribe to the channel and let us know, 214-717-5921, if there's something you want addressed, or if there's something you really want to get an answer for. And myself and Luane, we will find that response for you within the industry. Y'all have a great day. Be safe. See you at HSPA. And after that, see you at the Scrub Ball. All right.
Thanks.
All right.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Good night.